Good, whether it's morning or afternoon or evening or whenever you are watching this, welcome. Just to introduce myself, I am Caitlin, otherwise known as a compatibility coach on YouTube and Instagram. And I am a love and relationship and life coach that helps people break the cycle of being attracted to unavailable partners and finding love tough, and really help them get to a place where they are hopeful, they are excited, they're clear on who they're compatible with, and they're no longer stuck in that sort of toxic cycle of unhelpful dating and relationship patterns. Really is about healing your romantic life. So on this topic, the YouTube video we are going to be talking about today is why so many successful people fall for emotionally and unavailable partners, emotionally unavailable and generally unavailable partners, because this is one of the hottest topics that my clients come to me to help with, because somewhere down the line they've got themselves into a position where they are dating the same person with a different face and always getting that same result, perhaps where it ends, or they can't commit, or they can't open up. So I want to talk about what it actually means when we talk about falling for unavailable people, and the kind of some of the characteristics and the red flags to look out for. I want to talk about why we fall for unavailable people and give you a few key reasons. And then I want to give you a couple of tips that you can start doing the deep dive into about how to break this pattern in this cycle. And I will say now from the outset, this is filmed at the end of June. On the 11th of July, I am running a live masterclass called How to Break the Cycle of Falling for Unavailable People, where we are going to be spending an hour and a half doing a deep dive into this. It's going to be interactive, there's going to be a Q&A, and we're really going to get to the bottom of why, but also let's give you kind of 5 concrete steps on how you can begin to regulate and actually get yourself to a position where you're available and be able to call in that partner. So it's going to be a really immersive experience. So if you do want to sign up, or if you are interested, please, I'm going to pop the Eventbrite link in my bio. But if you're watching this after that date, then the masterclass will be available to purchase. It won't be live, but you will be able to access the longer recording. So before we get started, let's talk about what it means to be unavailable. So a pretty sort of buzzword at the moment is calling people emotionally unavailable, and often it can be directed at men a lot of the time. But when we're talking about emotional unavailability, we're talking about somebody not being able to give you the intimacy and the connection that you need. So if you're just starting a relationship, there might be a lot of flirting and texting, but they perhaps don't initiate dates, or they won't let you in, they won't talk about their feelings, they won't talk about their family. There isn't that kind of openness and security. So there's always something kind of blocking you getting to the next step. They could just be very inconsistent, and they really might not be in a place to even label the relationship. If you're in a relationship where you're dating somebody, again, it means you're missing that kind of deeper connection. They might have even told you that they're unavailable, or that they've told you that they don't do well in times of conflict, or they don't do well in getting close to somebody and letting somebody in, or introducing them to their family and things like this. These are sort of perhaps pinker flags, and can be signs that somebody isn't quite there and ready to meet you. So for whatever reason, in whatever situation, if we're talking about emotional unavailability, you feel like you've been kept at arm's length and you're often being pushed away, or they just can't commit at all. And which brings me on to perhaps the second type of unavailability, is where they're unavailable to be in a relationship with you because they're already in one with someone else. They're already dating somebody else, they're hyper-focused on work or a different aspect of their life. They don't have the time, energy, or desire to devote attention to that. They kind of keep you there. So sometimes it might feel like they're emotionally available, but actually time-wise, again, they could be in a relationship with somebody, it might be missing that connection. So, you know, in all types, this can either be temporary unavailability or chronic unavailability that can last for years and years and years. However, I would say it's all very well and good being able to spot when it's there in somebody else. And of course, you know, we all get into situations and habits sometimes where we do fall for people who can't meet us where we want to be met, and perhaps can't commit if we're looking for a relationship, and that's okay. But what I would say is, if this is your pattern, if this is what you're seeing time and time again, then it's time to look deeper, and it's time to look at actually perhaps what it reflects about you, because a lot of the time it doesn't matter if somebody's unavailable. It's what you choose to do. If you choose to go there, if you choose to chase, if you choose to try and prove your worth by getting them to open up, that's about you. And it's definitely one of the biggest obstacles that my clients face in how to break this cycle, because the results we get in our love life do tend to be a mirror of what is going on internally with us. So if we don't believe we can have the love we want, or we don't believe it's out there, we don't believe we deserve it, or we've been conditioned that love looks and feels a certain way, then we tend to be attracted to people who prove those beliefs right. You know, they are kind of hot and cold, they're unavailable, they cheat, they can't offer us what we want. So let's talk about the why, shall we? Let's talk about why people do tend to be attracted to partners like this, because on the surface, of course you'd say, oh no, that sounds awful. I'd never want to date somebody who couldn't make plans or couldn't open up, or, you know, treated me like I was disposable, or I couldn't talk to or communicate with. But the truth of the matter is, we end up in these situations a lot. And probably going to hate this answer, but because each person is so different and has had a complete set of unique experiences to them, there's no one super simple answer. You know, there's one kind of no answer fits all. So what I want to do is give you a few examples of why we could be attracted to emotionally unavailable people, so you can kind of take that and use that as the jumping point to go and do some more exploring, because as we've only got, you know, sort of another 10 minutes or so, but I want to set you on your way. So number one, what we see a lot with why people are attracted to people who they can't have, or have certain behaviour characteristics, and this isn't just about unavailability, this is generally true of our love lives, is that we need to look at the kind of role models and the dynamics during our formative years, whether that was childhood, perhaps teenagers, what we experience and things like this, because it's important to acknowledge it, and without blame, and acknowledge very gently that our parents did the best they could to their ability, but sometimes, yes, our needs weren't met as children or teenagers, and and sometimes it is those emotional needs. So if we grew up in this environment where you did perhaps have a caregiver or somebody important to you who wasn't available or emotionally available to meet your needs, then or perhaps you experienced the opposite, where things were very kind of up and down, on walking on a lot of eggshells, and you had to kind of adapt your own needs, your own behaviour, and keep things on an even keel, then what we can sometimes see in our romantic lives is we will be attracted to that familiar dynamic. We will be attracted to the feelings that we already know, of perhaps uncertainty, or keeping everybody at a distance, or we're attracted to people, as creepy as it can sound, who do have some characteristics of caregivers, because it's what we know. As humans, we are hardwired to always look for what is familiar. I can't stress this enough. So, in later years, we can either seek somebody who perhaps is unavailable as well, hoping that we can maybe change the dynamic from childhood, or that we, again, just because it feels comfortable, it's what we know, or we perhaps become that unavailable partner ourselves. Which brings me on to number two, which is often when we crave love and closeness, but sometimes wary of it, or there's something holding us back. On some level, it's safer to be attracted to somebody or go out with somebody or chase somebody where there is a barrier. And a lot of the time that barrier is being emotionally unavailable. Because when this happens on some level, it's because we're not actually available for intimacy. We're perhaps not ready or available for connection, or to be vulnerable, or to be in a relationship where it could turn into something real. And because if you have been in that cycle and that pattern of going out with people who aren't available, then you kind of know the ending already on some level. Yes, it hurts, and I'm not taking away from the pain and the rejection and the anxiety it will produce or can produce, but sometimes on a subconscious level, if we are attracting those people and are attracted to those people, it's because something has been mirrored in us. And that was definitely my pattern. I'm saying this from experience as well. I said I wanted a relationship, I said I wanted love, but I wasn't emotionally available. And that came out because I would chase people who also weren't available. And then when somebody who was available came along, I would shut down and be like, oh, that's gross, you know, they're too keen, or whatever it was. And of course, this all links into attachment styles, how we were brought up, what we experienced, and what our romantic experiences have been so far. But remember, please, that if you aren't available for a relationship, that is okay. You don't have to want one all the time. You don't have to be in one all the time. But if you're craving that love and that closeness, but you find yourself sabotaging, or you pull away, or you can't ever quite get to that next step, then it could be time to do a bit of deeper digging and a bit of work to get you to a place where you're available, where you are okay to be vulnerable, where it feels safe to enter into a partnership with somebody who can meet you there. Okay, this is all about feeling safe, and at the moment it might, in a perverse way, actually feel safer to be with somebody who's not available. Okay, we have to learn to get past the fear of somebody seeing the real us, or opening ourselves up to the possibility of somebody rejecting who we are, you know, which can be scary. But where there is that part of us that needs to be healed or looked after, then we will perhaps avoid people who will help us do that. Third point, what shall I say the third point is? Okay, let's talk about a slightly wider situation that has a huge impact on our love blueprint, and what goes on here, which is what society has taught us that love is. Now, it might be human nature, who knows, to want to chase or people who aren't available, or to want what you can't have. You know, it might feel more exciting, it might feel more interesting, especially if you do have a bit more of an anxious attachment. You know, you're used to that roller coaster of is it going to happen, is it not going to happen, etc, etc. You know, we're all chasing the spark, aren't we? But this often comes from, if it doesn't come from our formative years and childhood, this comes from Disney, rom-coms, magazines, all of that stuff, where we are taught from such a young age that love is chasing and excitement and fireworks and this big movie end, where, you know, usually the woman changes the man and he becomes, you know, turns from being unavailable or a bad boy or whatever into the best boyfriend in the world because she's worth it. That's what we're brought up with. Usually the woman is quite passive, quite submissive. If you look at Disney and things like that, but it's always she manages to change him for the better because she is good enough. So that's what we observe. So that's where we're coming from. So I do think it is really, really, really important to acknowledge that, because even if you've had the best role models in the world, you've had, you know, incredible examples of what love is, sometimes just by absorbing that and by absorbing what's going on around us and what friends say and everything, that can really, really cloud our own judgment. So on to perhaps the third section now, how to break the cycle. Because no matter what one of those three that you resonated with, I think to sum it up, and in a nutshell, we are attracted to unavailable people because somewhere down the line we learned that that's what love is. Somewhere down the line we learned that love is when somebody can't show up for us or see us for who we are, or it involves games or drama or anxiety and something like that. So as we get older, we're attracted to the familiarity of that, even if the feeling is one of pain or rejection or not being chosen. That's still what we know, that's still what we go towards, okay? And this can arise from the various aspects we talked about. But the good news is, because this is a learned behavior, it means we can unlearn it. So a lot of the time, what I do with clients, and I tend to work with people who are very, successful, who have a lot of the time great jobs, great friendships and things like that. We look at actually why things such as jobs and friends and, building a business or a lovely house or whatever it is feels, or, staying in shape, exercising, whatever it is, why that feels easy for them and why relationships don't. And usually it's because the relationship element, the healthy love, sits outside of their core identity. It sits outside what they think is possible for them. It sits outside what they know so far. So we have to really work on kind of rewriting their love blueprint and choosing a new identity and choosing a different way to experience things. So if you do want to start on this journey, and I do stress that this should be done with such gentleness and such kindness to yourself, because these are patterns that we've built up over the years, and that keep us safe and have protected us so far. So this isn't about, throwing down the gauntlet and being like, I'm never going to do this again. Oh, how can I have got myself into this situation, or blaming others or blaming yourselves. This is just about really gently being able to unpick it. And I would suggest you do this with a coach, with a friend, with a therapist, or in an environment where you feel really safe. Again, because this is replacing a safety mechanism with something else, isn't it? So there are two questions I think that you can ask yourself to help you start to break the cycle. And these are, number one, what is it that means on some level it feels safe to chase or be attracted or go out with people who are unavailable? In the kindest possible way, what's the payoff here? Because if we're keeping on doing something, there is a reason why we're doing it. And even if it hurts, even if it feels really painful, what are we actually getting out of it? Is it that we get the drama and the excitement in the chase? Is it that we want the status of changing that person? Is it that we don't have to open up? We don't have to let somebody see all the real us because there are all these games and the drama and you can't really have them. What is it that feels safe for you in that situation? And number two is, what is one thing you can do every day to start to move yourself to a place of emotional availability? Because the more available you are, the more you can self-regulate, the more you can protect yourself, the easier it is going to be to spot when it's not there with someone else. And you can show up as you in a really powerful way, in a way that's okay to be vulnerable. So what is one thing a day that you could do to move yourself towards a place of availability? Is it having conversation with somebody you'd usually avoid? Is it asking a friend for help? Is it telling up somebody something that feels a bit vulnerable to you? Is it saying how you feel? Is it listening when somebody wants to tell you something? Is it not shutting down? So there are lots of things you can do, but this is about the really this is the kind of basic building steps, because sometimes it might not matter why we've got to a place where we're not available or why we're attracted to people that we are. And sometimes exploring the why can be really helpful, but actually it's about, okay, this is where we are and we can choose differently now. And that's all right. So what can we do to help change our thoughts, change our language, change our behaviour? There is so much more that we can do on this section, and I'm so excited to explore this in my webinar further on the 11th of July. So please do ask me any questions you have about that, or rate, subscribe and comment below, as it means I can keep providing free content for you guys. But I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you soon.